Hey, what's up everyone? Before we jump into today's breakdown, I want to ask you something real quick. If you're tired of the mainstream media feeding you lies and you want the raw, unfiltered truth about what's really happening in the NFL, hit that subscribe button right now. We're on a mission to hit 1,000 subscribers and build a community that isn't afraid to speak facts. Your support means everything, so let's grow this thing together. Alright, let's get into it. The Cleveland Browns just pulled off a win against Miami, and you'd think that would be something to celebrate, right? Wrong. Dead wrong. Because what we witnessed wasn't a victory, it was a cover-up. It was smoke and mirrors hiding the fact that this franchise is in absolute crisis mode right now. And at the center of this disaster is a quarterback controversy that's tearing this organization apart from the inside out. Let me tell you what's really going on behind closed doors in Cleveland. Sources close to the situation are saying that owner Jimmy Haslam is beyond furious. We're talking nuclear levels of anger. And honestly, after watching what unfolded in Miami, can anyone blame him? The man has poured hundreds of millions of dollars into this franchise, and what does he get in return? A quarterback who threw for 55 yards in an entire half of professional football. 55 yards? Let that sink in for a moment. You could sneeze and accidentally gain more yards than that. But here's what makes this whole situation even more insane. While Dillon Gabriel was out there looking completely lost, playing scared, checking down on every single play, the future of this franchise was standing on the sideline. Shedeur Sanders, a quarterback with championship DNA, a guy who's been prepared for this moment his entire life, was holding a clipboard, and every single snap that goes by without him on the field is another missed opportunity for this team to discover what they really have. Now, I know what some of you are thinking, but they won the game, so what's the problem? The problem is that winning against a 1-5 Dolphins team that was missing their best player doesn't fix the fundamental issues plaguing this offense. It doesn't change the fact that your quarterback can't push the ball downfield. It doesn't change the fact that your entire offensive game plan is built around hiding your quarterback's weaknesses rather than showcasing any strengths. And it definitely doesn't change the reality that your coaching staff has zero confidence in the guy they're trotting out there every Sunday. Let's talk about what actually happened in this game, because the numbers tell a story that the final score tries desperately to hide. Dillon Gabriel completed passes for 55 yards in the first half. That's not a typo, that's not an exaggeration, that's the actual stat line. Meanwhile, rookie running back Quinton Judkins carried the ball 18 times for 75 yards in that same half. Think about what that means. Your running back, a guy in his first season, had more rushing yards than your quarterback had passing yards. That's not a balanced offense. That's not even close to acceptable. That's a coaching staff waving a giant white flag and admitting they don't trust their signal caller to actually, throw the football. And let's give Judkins his props right here, because that young man went out there and put the entire offense on his back. I've been telling everyone since before he got drafted that this guy was going to be special. When he had his issues earlier this year, when he got arrested, all you bandwagon fans jumped ship immediately. You wanted him cut, you wanted him gone, but I stood by my evaluation, and guess what? I was right. This man is a baller. He showed up when his team needed him most, running with power, with vision, with heart. He was the only bright spot in an otherwise unwatchable offensive performance. But here's the thing that nobody wants to talk about. You cannot win in today's NFL with just a running game. It's impossible. Defenses are too fast, too athletic, too smart. Eventually, they're gonna load the box. Eventually, they're gonna force you into obvious passing situations. And when that happens, when it's 3rd and long and you need your quarterback to step up and make a play, Dillon Gabriel has proven time and time again that he simply cannot deliver. The Miami defense figured this out by the second quarter. They stopped respecting the pass completely. They put 8, 9, sometimes 10 defenders in the box, and they dared Cleveland to beat them through the air. And you know what happened? Cleveland couldn't do it, not even close. Every single play call told the same story. Screen pass for 2 yards. Check down to the running back. Safe throw to the flat. Nothing challenging the defense. Nothing making them respect the downfield passing game. Kevin Stefanski's play calling wasn't aggressive or creative. It was terrified. Every decision he made screamed that he knows his quarterback can't handle real NFL throws. You don't dial up a game plan that conservative unless you have zero faith in the guy taking the snaps. And that lack of faith is infectious. It spreads through the locker room. It affects how the defense plays, knowing they have to be perfect because the offense can't be trusted to score points. Speaking of the defense, let's talk about Myles Garrett for a second. This man is an absolute monster, arguably the best defensive player in the entire league right now. And after the game, he had to stand in front of reporters and basically admit that the offense is holding this team back. He was diplomatic about it, sure, but everyone knows what he was really saying. The defense is exhausted from carrying this team. They're tired of playing lights out football, getting crucial stops, only to watch the offense go 3 and out because their quarterback can't move the ball. That creates resentment. That creates division. That's how you lose a locker room. Now, I want you to imagine something with me. Close your eyes for a second. Picture Shedeur Sanders in that same uniform. Picture him taking that first snap with the game on the line. He's not panicking. He's not scared. He's cool, calm, collected. He's been in pressure situations his entire life. His father is Deion Sanders. He grew up in the spotlight. He played at Jackson State where they had FCS talent competing against FBS level competition, and he dominated. He went to Colorado, a program that was the laughingstock of college football, and with arguably the worst offensive line in the country, he turned that team around and put up historic numbers. Pressure doesn't faze him. Pressure is his comfort zone. Now picture him scanning the field. He's going through his progressions. 1, 2, 3. He feels the pressure from the edge, but he doesn't panic. He steps up in the pocket, keeps his eyes downfield, and delivers an absolute laser 25 yards for a first down. That's what leadership looks like. That's what poise looks like. That's what Cleveland is missing, and it's sitting right there on their bench, wasting away while they continue this failed experiment with Dillon Gabriel. And let's destroy one of the biggest lies that's been spread about these two quarterbacks. All through the draft process, all through training camp, we kept hearing the same narrative. Dillon Gabriel is more athletic than Shedeur Sanders. He's more mobile. He can extend plays with his legs. Really? Where? Show me. I watched every single snap of this game, and I didn't see any of this magical athleticism we were promised. What I saw was a quarterback who looked terrified every time there was even a hint of pressure. There was one play where a defender came around the edge and barely touched him, and Dillon just crumbled. He didn't try to escape. He didn't step up. He didn't throw it away. He just accepted the sack like it was inevitable. Is that your mobile quarterback? Is that the guy who's supposedly more athletic than Shedeur? Let me tell you what Shedeur would have done in that exact situation. He would have felt the pressure, kept his composure, slid up in the pocket, and delivered a strike for a first down. Or at worst, he would have used his actual mobility to escape, reset his feet, and then made the throw. That's the difference between a quarterback who's battle-tested and one who's still trying to prove he belongs. Shedeur has played under the brightest lights, faced the most intense scrutiny, and thrived. Dillon Gabriel played in a system at Oklahoma that made quarterbacks look good, surrounded by 5-star talent and an elite offensive line. And now that those advantages are gone, we're all seeing what he really is without that support system. This isn't just affecting the field either. This is creating chaos throughout the entire organization. Do you know who showed up to this game in Miami? Shiloh Sanders and Pilar Sanders, Deion's daughter and Shedeur's mother. They flew all the way down there to watch this team play. And why do you think they were there? It wasn't for the vacation. It wasn't to watch Dillon Gabriel throw bubble screens. They were there to support Shedeur, yes, but also to send a message. Even they know that he should be playing. The cameras kept cutting to them in the stands, and you could see the frustration on their faces. They're watching the same disaster we're all watching, wondering why their son, one of the most talented quarterbacks in the entire draft class, is riding the bench while this circus continues. The fans in the stadium were booing. You could hear it clearly through the broadcast. They were booing their own team during a game they eventually won because the product on the field was so boring, so uninspired, so disrespectful to anyone who paid money to watch it. These are die-hard Browns fans, people who've suffered through decades of disappointment, and even they've reached their breaking point. They know what everyone else knows. This isn't working. The Dillon Gabriel experiment has failed, and continuing to force it down everyone's throats is organizational malpractice. Let's talk about the narrative that the coaching staff keeps pushing. They're trying to protect Shedeur by keeping him on the bench. They don't want to throw him into the fire too early. They want him to learn and develop from the sideline. That's the most ridiculous excuse I've ever heard. Protecting him from what? From getting actual NFL experience? From learning how to read defenses in real time? From making the rookie mistakes that every single quarterback in history has had to make? That's not protection. That's sabotage. Every week that goes by is another week Shedeur isn't developing in live game situations. Every week is another week this team is spinning its wheels, going nowhere, wasting the prime years of players like Myles Garrett. And here's what really exposes this whole charade. The Dolphins defense, a unit that came into this game ranked near the bottom of the league, figured out Cleveland's offense almost immediately. They knew Dillon Gabriel couldn't hurt them deep. They knew every play was going to be within 5 yards of the line of scrimmage. So they adjusted, they loaded the box, they played aggressive man coverage. They basically said, "We dare you to beat us with your arm. Prove us wrong." And Dillon Gabriel couldn't do it. Even against one of the worst defenses in the league, he couldn't make them pay for disrespecting him. That tells you everything you need to know about what the coaching staff is working with. But let's be real about what's actually happening here. This goes way beyond football. This is about ego. This is about pride. This is about a front office and coaching staff that made a decision in the draft, and now they're too stubborn to admit they were wrong. They convinced themselves that Dillon Gabriel was the safer pick, the more pro-ready option, the guy who could step in and contribute immediately. And now that reality has proven them wrong, they can't bring themselves to admit the mistake. So instead, they keep doubling down, keep trotting him out there, keep running an offense that's designed to hide his limitations rather than showcase anyone's strengths. Jimmy Haslam has to be losing his mind watching this. This is a man who's fired coaches, who's turned over front offices, who's invested ungodly amounts of money trying to build a winner in Cleveland. And here we are in 2025, watching a quarterback who can't complete passes start over a potential franchise-changing talent for no reason other than politics and pride. How much longer is he going to tolerate this? How many more games like this can he sit through before he walks down to that locker room and makes the change himself? Because if Kevin Stefanski won't do it, someone has to. Dillon Gabriel knows he's not playing well. You can see it in his body language. You can hear it in his post-game interviews when he gives those rehearsed, generic answers that don't address any of the actual problems. We just need to execute better. I need to be better. We'll watch the tape and make corrections. He knows the fans are turning on him. He knows his teammates are frustrated. He knows Shedeur Sanders is waiting right there, ready to take his job. That's not a sustainable situation for anyone. That's a pressure cooker, and it's about to explode. But through all of this, let me give Shedeur Sanders his credit, because his response to this situation shows you exactly the kind of leader he is. Despite being passed over for a quarterback who's clearly inferior, despite watching his rookie season slip away, despite all the politics and nonsense, he's handled everything with class. He's been supportive on the sideline. He's been a good teammate. He's stayed ready. He's stayed professional. That's the mark of someone special. That's the mark of someone who understands the long game. That's the mark of a future star who's gonna prove everyone wrong the second he gets his opportunity. Yes, Cleveland won this game. The final score was something like 31-17, but that win means absolutely nothing. It's the most hollow, meaningless victory imaginable. They beat a 1-5 Dolphins team that was missing Tyreek Hill. Congratulations, you beat another struggling team. Does that fix anything? Does that change the fact that your offense is broken? No. All that win does is buy Kevin Stefanski another week or two before this happens all over again. It delays the inevitable. It gives him just enough rope to hang himself with. The Cleveland Browns are now 2-5 after this game. Their season is effectively over in terms of playoff contention. But it doesn't have to be a completely wasted season. They could use these remaining games to develop their future. They could give Shedeur Sanders the reps he needs. They could let him learn, let him make mistakes, let him grow. Because I promise you this, and you can take this to the bank, whatever growing pains come with starting a rookie quarterback, whatever interceptions he might throw, whatever learning curves he has to overcome, it cannot possibly be worse than what we're being forced to watch right now with Dillon Gabriel. This is organizational malpractice at its finest. The experiment has failed. It failed in preseason when Dillon looked shaky against backups. It failed in the regular season when he couldn't move the ball against real competition. And it failed spectacularly in Miami when he put up numbers that would embarrass a Division III college quarterback. At some point, you have to cut your losses. You have to call a mistake what it is and move on. The longer Cleveland waits to make this change, the more damage they're doing to their franchise, their locker room, and their future. There are only two paths forward here. Option 1, Cleveland continues being stubborn. They keep running this failed experiment into the ground, alienating their fan base, creating division in the locker room, and wasting another season, all to avoid admitting they were wrong. Or option 2, they wake up. Jimmy Haslam steps in and forces the change that everyone can see needs to happen. They start Shedeur Sanders, they give him the offense, they let him play, they let him show what he can do with NFL talent around him. Because, let's be honest about something, Shedeur Sanders has been ready for this moment his entire life. He didn't choose the easy path. He could have gone to Alabama or Georgia and ridden the bench for 2 years. Instead, he went to Jackson State and then Colorado, programs where he had to be the man from day one. He dealt with subpar offensive lines. He dealt with limited resources. He dealt with constant scrutiny because of his last name. And through it all, he produced. He won. He elevated everyone around him. That's what franchise quarterbacks do. Dillon Gabriel, on the other hand, played in the perfect system at Oklahoma. He had elite coaching, elite talent around him, elite everything, and even then he was just good, not great. Now that he's in the NFL without all those advantages, we're seeing his limitations exposed on national television every single week. He doesn't have the arm strength to challenge defenses vertically. He doesn't have the processing speed to go through progressions quickly. He doesn't have the poise to handle pressure. He doesn't have the leadership to rally his teammates. He's a backup quarterback being forced into a starting role, and it shows. The clock is ticking on Cleveland's credibility. Every game they continue this charade is another game they're telling their fans, their players, and their owner that they care more about saving face than winning football games. That's the most damning indictment of all. This isn't about football anymore. This is about pride. This is about ego. This is about a coaching staff that would rather go down with the ship than admit they were wrong. Kevin Stefanski is supposed to be an offensive genius. He won Coach of the Year. He's supposed to be this brilliant play caller, but his entire game plan against Miami exposed him as either incompetent or terrified of his own quarterback. You cannot run an offense in the modern NFL that's this conservative and this predictable and expect to succeed. You cannot ask a running back to carry the ball 18 times in a half because you don't trust your quarterback to throw. That's not coaching, that's surrender. And the sad part is that Dillon Gabriel probably knows this better than anyone. He can feel it. He can sense that his leash is getting shorter with every game. He sees Shedeur on the sideline. He hears the boos from the fans. He knows his time is running out. But instead of rising to the challenge, instead of proving the doubters wrong, he's shrinking. He's playing scared. He's checking down. He's taking sacks. He's doing everything that confirms what everyone already suspects. He's not the answer. Meanwhile, Shedeur Sanders sits and waits. He stays ready. He studies film. He supports his teammates. He handles this impossible situation with more maturity than most veterans would. That patience, that professionalism, that quiet confidence, it's all going to pay off eventually because the truth always comes out. The cream always rises to the top. And when Shedeur finally gets his shot, and trust me, he will, he's going to show everyone exactly why he should have been starting from day one. The Cleveland Browns organization is at a crossroads right now. They can continue down this path of denial and watch their season completely fall apart. They can keep trotting out Dillon Gabriel and running this pathetic excuse for an offense. They can keep ignoring the obvious solution that's staring them right in the face. Or they can make the tough decision. They can admit the mistake. They can pivot. They can start Shedeur Sanders and give themselves a chance to salvage something from this disaster of a season. Jimmy Haslam didn't become a billionaire by being stupid. He didn't build his empire by accepting failure. At some point very soon, he's gonna have to make a decision. Does he trust his coaching staff to figure this out, or does he step in and force their hand? Because one thing is crystal clear, this cannot continue. The fans won't tolerate it, the locker room won't tolerate it, and Jimmy Haslam certainly won't tolerate watching his investment circle the drain because his coaches are too proud to make the obvious change. Look, I get it. Nobody wants to admit they were wrong. Nobody wants to say that their first round pick or their hand-selected starter isn't working out, but that's what leadership is. That's what separates good organizations from bad ones. Good organizations recognize mistakes early and correct them. Bad organizations double down and make excuses until it's too late. Which one is Cleveland going to be? This game against Miami should have been a wake-up call. It should have been the final straw. 55 passing yards and a half against one of the worst defenses in football. That's not just bad. That's historically terrible. That's the kind of performance that gets coaches fired and quarterbacks benched. But instead of making the change, Cleveland is probably going to run it back next week and hope for a different result. That's the definition of insanity. The worst part about all of this is the wasted potential. This Browns roster isn't terrible. They have talent talent on defense with Myles Garrett and others. They have a promising young running back in Quinshon Judkins. They have weapons on offense that could be productive with competent quarterback play. But none of that matters when your quarterback can't get them the ball. You're essentially handicapping your entire team by refusing to make the change at the most important position. And let's talk about what this is doing to Shedeur's development. Every week he spends on the bench is a week he's not getting better through actual game experience. You can practice all you want, but nothing replaces real game action. Nothing replaces feeling actual pressure, making reads against NFL defenses, learning from your mistakes in real time. By keeping him benched, Cleveland isn't protecting him or helping him develop. They're stunting his growth and wasting precious time that they'll never get back. At this point, starting Shedeur isn't even a risk. It's the smart play. What's the worst that can happen? He struggles, he throws some interceptions, he has growing pains. At least he'd be gaining experience. At least he'd be showing what he can do. At least the team would be moving forward instead of treading water with a quarterback who's already proven he can't get the job done. There's literally no downside to making the change. So here's where we are. Cleveland just won a game, but lost credibility. They beat Miami, but exposed themselves as a franchise that's more concerned with optics than results. They're sitting at 2-5 with their season slipping away and a potential franchise quarterback collecting splinters on the bench. Something has to give. Someone has to be the adult in the room and make the call that everyone knows needs to be made. This isn't just about one game or one season anymore. This is about the future of the franchise. This is about whether Cleveland is going to be a laughing stock for another decade, or whether they're finally going to make smart decisions. The Dillon Gabriel experiment has failed. Everyone knows it. The only question now is how much longer they're going to pretend otherwise before reality forces their hand. Jimmy Haslam needs to step up. Kevin Stefanski needs to swallow his pride. Someone needs to do what's best for this team and start Shedeur Sanders. The fans deserve better. The players deserve better. And Shedeur Sanders deserves his shot to prove why he was one of the top quarterbacks in this draft. Every day that goes by without that happening is another day Cleveland chooses failure over success. Alright, that's all I've got for you today. I want to hear your thoughts in the comments right now. Do you think it's finally time for Cleveland to start Shedeur Sanders? Are you as frustrated as I am watching Dillon Gabriel check down for 55 yards a game? Let me know your honest opinion, because I read every single comment. And if you appreciate the real, unfiltered truth without all the media spin and corporate talking points, do me a favor, hit that like button right now. It helps the algorithm show this video to more people who need to hear it. Then subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you never miss another breakdown. And finally, share this video with every Browns fan you know who's fed up with what they're watching. This message needs to spread because the truth can't stay hidden forever. I'll catch you in the next one. Stay real, stay focused, and remember, the truth always wins in the end.